Welcome to the Impactful Engineer Project. I'm Steve Maxey, and with my co-host and brother Jake, we are here to bring you guidance, fresh ideas, and the tools to help you become an impactful engineer.
Welcome to the Impactful Engineer. Our mission is to help you grow your engineering career and inspire you to pursue your full potential, not just as an engineering professional, but as a member of your greater community. I'm Jake. I'm the founder of NLS Engineering. We're an electrical engineering partner in the AEC industry. I'm here with my brother Steve, of course. He's a mechanical engineering manager in new product development. And Steve, go ahead and tell us, what do we usually do here on the show?
Yes, sir. Salutations.
How's it
going? Within this podcast, we do have a few episode formats. Our most common episode type is Jake and I come on here and present a topic where we introduce the why and the how around that concept and give some tips to inspire some action. Occasionally, we have some solo episodes that immediately get down to the point and share an idea that you should immediately kick off in your own life and career. These can be high-level concepts that change your way of thinking and mindset, or just more detailed, actionable items. And finally, about once a month, we will have a long-format guest episode where we bring in experts in a particular field to share their perspective, mindset, and actionable tips around their area of genius.
Right on. And today is one of those episodes. The guest we have today has many years as a career engineer and is shifted into coaching. And we're finding more and more that he's going to bring some brilliant insight. And I'm going to set you all up. You are the expert. You better bring some fire. Just kidding. But Chris has so much to draw on. And so I'd like to welcome Chris Stasiuk to the show. And we're going to pull some good stuff out of you today. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you, sir.
And I got Stasiuk right?
You got Stasiuk right.
Stasiuk. I was like saying ook. Stasiuk. Okay, cool. Well, welcome to the show, man. Tell us a little bit about, history. Who is Chris and what are you doing now?
Okay, well, a long time ago, I graduated as an electrical engineer and joined a small engineering consulting firm up in Canada, focusing on industrial automation and industrial networking. But pretty early on in such a small firm, I got identified as an engineer with social skills, and somebody needed to be in charge of doing some sales, business development, and interacting with the client in a way that, didn't turn them off. So I moved into that fairly early in my career, doing a combination of sales, business development, people management, project management, and probably less so on the technical side. And I did that for more than 25 years, actually, with the same firm, which is maybe a little bit odd. And then it came to a crossroads where I wanted to look at how I might make a bigger impact rather than automating how a conveyor may start and stop, because you can only do that so many times, and moved over to coaching with kind of a goal of helping engineers be less engineering, working on the soft skills, working on those leadership skills, and stepping in to be, ironically, more impactful.
Yeah, your early career sounds a lot like mine. It reminds me of how mine went, because I was always more of the could talk to people, make them feel at ease, have them understand what's actually happening beyond all the technical stuff. So I kind of got thrust into management and leading a team very quickly as well. So that's like, we're like kind of parallel there. Do I want to be a coach? No, but that's how rare it is, like, and how powerful it can be. Even if you're not naturally someone that's not so engineering, and can sell, to learn the skills and the behaviors behind it. And so that's kind of the whole premise I want to set up in the episode too, is like, that's, even if you're not naturally that way, learning the skills is going to help you tremendously, even if you choose to stay in just a purely technical role.
That's 100% right, because it's pretty rare for an engineer to sit completely alone in a cubicle and solve the world's problems on their own. They are going to be working with other engineers, other stakeholders, whoever the case might be, and really having those skills to be able to effectively communicate and create influence so that your best ideas aren't sitting stuck in a cubicle because no one knows about them, or worse, nobody can understand what the point of your ideas are.
Yeah, or maybe even worse, shut off to you because they're like, yeah, this person ain't worth talking to.
Yeah.
That reminds me, because Chris, we were talking about, I think it was one of your first clients, a firm was looking for, we need a coach. We need to turn this person into, because they're technically a genius. We needed to turn this person into someone that can get the team rallied, share their ideas in a way that's beneficial, when they were completely closed off before.
That was, yes, totally it. Technically brilliant, wanting to become a team lead, a system architect. He wanted that. The firm wanted that, but there were missing pieces, which fortunately he realized. One of the first things he had said to me is, I really only have one or two tools in my toolbox. I'm not a great communicator. And he was an individual that went from, before we worked together, and I don't know if this is an exaggeration, but his team would take bets on how long it would be for him to explode in a meeting and completely rage out. And within a very short time, because he was willing to put in the work and listen, even his manager came back to me and effectively said that he was a completely different person and was set up for success by just getting some additional tools, such that, when the only thing you have in your toolbox is a hammer, you do treat everything like a nail. But, as he broadened the number of tools in his toolbox, he was able to communicate with his team. When he would ask a question, he went from his team thinking that he was questioning their competence or capabilities to a true sense of curiosity of, I'd like to understand for my own benefit how you approach that problem so that I can increase my knowledge base. And it became much more collaborative as he embraced that curiosity.
And those questions could have always been intended, right, to have that goal of understanding, but maybe just the way he phrased them, or the tone of voice, or the body language that he had when asking those, is what turned people off, right?
And that was exactly it. There's a number of stereotypes that I think he fit perfectly when we first started talking, and one of those was a fairly stern, blunt approach. And so, yes, the words probably didn't change in the question, but the body language, the tone, the sense of curiosity that was conveyed through maybe some empathy or emotional intelligence of understanding that the recipient thinks I'm attacking them. I maybe need to make some shifts to demonstrate that I'm not, that I am curious.
So when you're working with someone like that, how would you pinpoint kind of the direction that they need to shift their tone or their body language? Like, do you have them ask for direct feedback from their peers?
Yes, when they're not self-aware, or in this case, in the example given, he was mandated by his management. Mm-hmm. So management had identified this as a problem. And fortunately, he was aware that it was a problem. It can be very difficult if the person is not aware that they have some deficiencies, and if they just kind of come at it bullheaded and cannot check their ego, they're obviously not coachable. But when they're either aware or will accept that feedback from peers or management or whomever the case might be of how can I improve my communications? Then they can start to recognize that, I guess the first step on solving the problem is acknowledging that there is one.
Yeah, so I think it's critically important for anyone listening to be open for that feedback, because you don't want to have too many blind spots, right? Because I mean that was a huge blind spot probably for a very long time. Then he became aware, but it still wasn't fixed. But he was at least aware and open to making those changes.
That's 100%. And I know, I think we've all got blind spots. And we don't see them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called blind spots. So as long as we're open to that feedback and want to genuinely improve, those two things combined, I think, can create a much better and well-rounded individual.
Yeah, there's one thing I see holding people up is that it's not them, it's the entire other group that is pointing this out. And it's like, if that were true, then the only path forward would be for you to leave, the one person, to find a different group, because every other group's going to be different than this one, which we know is not true. It's like picking up and moving across the country because the other side of the country, or moving to a different country because that other place is going to be it won't have all the same stuff that we deal with here every day. So if we just relocate to somewhere, then all of that stuff will go away. And it's just, no, it follows you. Right. So if you're one of the people that is like, it's all them, I would say, give it a shot, right? To see what you could just be open to changing just a little bit, because if you're not meeting people here, so you're thrust into a leadership position and you're not meeting people where you're at, like at the skill level and where they are, you're certainly not going to be able to do that as you either move up or move to a different company or asked to do something different or be on a different team. It all follows you around. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying, if you feel like it's the other person, maybe consider either going cold turkey and just saying, look, something's not working, and like, let's just try stuff. I'm willing to figure it out. Let's work on it. Or get yourself a coach. I've battled with certain things for my entire career. And luckily I had my brother Steve to be like, Steve, what the hell do I do here? Like, what's your experience? And then podcasts, stuff like that happened to line up with what I was dealing with at the time. But even then, with the resources that I had, and I thought I was moving and proving pretty quick, when I got a coach, within a year, I had been able to unlock and then decide to do what I wanted to do and pursue something that meant a ton to me with a year of coaching, and improved as a career engineer, as a leader, as a colleague, like improved my ability to communicate to everyone too. So I just want to put that out there just in case someone is thinking, it's it's kind of, I hear what you're saying, but it's kind of everyone else. They just don't understand me, like, so I want to lay that out there.
Well, and oftentimes I think, there's usually a jerk in every room. And if you look around and can't find that person, it's probably you. So
some deductive reasoning there. Yeah. Sometimes you got to look kind of, instead of, I don't know. So I think someone told me, instead of pointing, you just raise your thumb and it's like, yeah, that's the one. Do the opposite.
Hey, my fellow impactful engineers. If there's one thing that you could do to help out this community, it's to keep listening to the podcast, but also if you found value in it, to share it with one person, give us a 5-star review, or even leave a text review. It'll only take a few seconds of your time. Find that person that you think could enjoy some of this or learn from it, and pass on the good word. Now back to the show.
Well, similarly, I've heard that when you point your finger, you've got 3 pointed right back at you. So
right,
sometimes it's not your fault; it's my fault times 3.
Yeah.
But I think your point on engaging a coach though can be really, or any sort of outside help that can provide some objectivity, because again, with the blind spots or your own confirmation bias. Sometimes you can't see, and even intentions. When you're communicating, you may intend one thing, but the problem is perception is people's reality. And so if I'm taking something different than what you intended to communicate, you need to revisit that and understand that, acknowledge the fact that, hey, that's not what I meant, Jake. That's not at all what I was saying, Steve. What I actually meant was this, so that you can clarify it. So getting that clarity and some of that feedback, objective feedback, can provide invaluable tools to help you improve.
Yeah, I think it's critically important to realize that it's not what is being said, is what is being heard, right, and understood. That is most important.
And that you're actually responsible for how the other person's hearing what you're saying.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a good book that I've read around that topic. It's called "Surrounded by Idiots." I don't know if have you heard that book?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what was that?
Thomas Erickson or something like that.
Yeah. It's a great, quick read, but it's about that, right? Your perception is you're surrounded by idiots, but really, the idiot is yourself, and you need to learn how to communicate with other types of communicators, so that way they are understanding how you intend to communicate by, changing your communication to match what they need to receive.
Yep. I had a big one smack me in the face, like with a feedback comment about everything being my way or get the hell out. And that's like, the people close to me that we've had more discussions and dive deeper into context and really got to know each other were like, well, yeah, that's just how you deliver it. And I understand what you're saying. But if I didn't have the 6 months straight of that direct relationship to build my way of communicating how things should be done and the speed I wanted them done, and we're all just here to work and get the desired outcome we want, as best as possible. That didn't make it to the other people's ears that didn't know me really well. So that was a good one for me. So it's right on this topic. Like, I got it. Jake, we perceive everything is your way. It's the Jake Show. And if it's not, we hear you complain a lot. So that was my big moment that I share all the time about the perception versus reality thing. My reality was I'm super helpful. We just go and we get everything done. And the perception was that I was an asshole. So, yeah.
Well, and there's another interesting take on that too, is that those 6 months you spent time building social capital. When you meet someone, you have zero. You're starting at zero. So yeah, over the course of a relationship, you can draw some of that social capital and go, yep, I know that's how Jake communicates. And I know what his intention is. It doesn't always match his words, but I know him well enough. But yeah, without that bank to draw from, he's a bit of a jerk.
Yeah, think about new people coming in. Think about changing a team, working with a team you never worked before, new clients, stuff like that. So why wouldn't you tailor your communication style for people that don't know you as well? Some people think, well, you just got to be you, authenticity, got to be you 100% all the time. And it's like, well, you can, and you'll get so far and you'll do certain things. But like, I would say it's worth looking into. It's not lying to people. You're adapting your leadership style and flow and delivery of information to the benefit of the whole team, right? Kind of comes back to the first client you had. Yeah, like, how do we do it?
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it's being inauthentic to, like, you shouldn't change who you are, but consider the fact, if you're talking with your engineering team, you can get technical and specific and riddle the conversation with three-letter acronyms. But if you're speaking with the client or another stakeholder that's not as technically savvy, and in all honesty, they don't care about all of the features the same way that your engineering team does. They're worried about the benefits. That's what they're interested in. And it's not a different message that you're delivering. You're just delivering different information in a different way that's, like you said, tailored to your audience so that they can understand what it is you're communicating and the parts that are important to them. I'm not worried how many lines of code that took to do. I want to make sure that my widget is blinking and, doing what I want it to do. I don't care how you do it. That's what I hired you for. So, getting that right information to the right audience is definitely critical.
Yeah, relevance is super important.
You brought up ego in your example. How does ego really like intertwine into all of this?
This was a bit of an interesting conversation. I think that we previously had a little bit, and I think there's a fine balance between ego and confidence. And in my experience, and speaking of for myself as well, letting go of that ego and admitting the things you don't know is critically important to be able to advance and develop. But you do need to draw some of that back to play into your confidence when you are speaking and presenting something. If as a lead engineer, if I'm presenting to the client and I think that it might be like this. I don't think that I want to engage that engineer because they don't sound like they're confident or competent. And I probably also don't want to engage the one that is telling me how it is and how I should run my business and, taking that confidence to the extreme of egomaniacal. But so it's a balance, but I find particularly through my career and what I've seen and finding coachable people, checking that ego to admit you don't know it all it's that first step to being able to improve, because then you're willing to accept the fact of the things you don't know that you can improve on.
Yeah. There's a cool like parallel in sports that I like to frame is, when you have professional athletes like football players, baseball players, etc. Often when they're interviewed, they're nice and humble. They're, like, we lost and blah, 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 etc. But when they're on the field, they have to draw that ego as an energy source to perform, right? They are the most egotistical when they are actually in play in the game, but then they release all that ego when they're off the field. Right. And so it's being able to use the ego as a performance enhancer almost with your confidence in your ability to perform.
Yeah.
That completely reminds me of Todd Herman's Alter Ego book, right? Where embracing that different persona in the right environment to channel that ego, that confidence, that where you need it, where you need to be dominating on a sports field. And then you can release it to come home, do an interview, be a good dad or husband or wife or mother, and channeling those appropriately so that you're not the same jerk everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I'll share kind of my version of this, I guess, but I see it highly beneficial in the work environment as an employee. So the more experience I got and the more projects I did, and I know the answer, right? And so you're with the team, you're iterating over a design decision. It's very easy to just be like, you do this, you do that, come back to me tomorrow with it done, and like, we're done. What I've found is participating with a little humility and getting curious and asking questions. How would you do that? What do you think about this situation? All well knowing, what I would perceive as like the best way to go, which we might even get there. It's a huge benefit to operate in a way that you're not dominating the conversation, because it's going to teach everyone else in the room that, that it's okay to speak up and have ideas, but also like they are training, you're helping them train right there, so that when the time comes and it's a very important discussion with high stakes, they're like, oh, I've done this a million times. I've had these conversations, and they're the leader now, right? And so then they start asking questions of the client, leading them where they need to go and figuring it out and being confident in their answers and the direction because they've practiced it the whole time. So like I always say, prepare with some humility, right? But then you're going to execute with that ego. And I think just in a team structure, that's going to bring a lot out of everybody. And it's a big benefit from what I've seen in my career.
Well, and when you bring that into a conversation too, the willingness to approach it with some humility, there's a chance that you will learn something as well through the course of, like, you may have done something the same way for a long time, but if you're not willing to listen to different or new ideas, you're going to be stuck in those terrible words of it's the way we've always done it, and getting stuck into that mode. So, and it's something that I'd learned a long time ago from a colleague in a conversation where, if you start to tell me something that I think I've heard before, as soon as I say, oh yeah, hey Steve, you told me that thing before, there was probably some additional information that you were going to add into this version. I've now shut down the conversation. This one and potentially future ones, because Steve's going to be like, oh, that Chris guy, he knows it all. I'm not going to bother to talk to him about anything. So approaching with that humility and curiosity and being willing to listen. A friend of mine, I like the quote because it's quite kind of visceral, where he says, like, most people listen with their mouths, right? You're listening to answer, not to understand, but I'm just waiting for my turn till you take a breath and I can start talking, rather than genuinely listening to understand.
Super hard to do. Also,
So hard to do.
Yeah,
and
especially when you know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I love your point, and I want to emphasize it, that you're closing off future opportunities to learn something new. Because I almost always would. Whether that would change my ultimate decision or not is not even the point. You get so much info when you have that collaboration, so that's good. And then what's the saying? It's like you got twice as many listening devices as you do talking, so like use it or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it makes sense biologically. We're given 2 ears. We should use them more.
Yeah, and I think you're losing the opportunity to find the best idea when you do stuff like that, right? If you may have a really good idea, even like in your head, and if you're willing to let other people build off your idea, or you build off of other people's ideas, etc., you're going to find the best idea, right? And that's ultimately the goal of every engineering project, is how do we have the best solution to this problem? It doesn't matter who came up with it. It could be the junior engineer has a brilliant idea and sweet, let's go,
Well, and it helps everyone to buy into the solution when they are part of creating it, right? If Jake comes in and just states, this is what we're going to do, I have no ownership of that decision. I guess even if it screws up, well, I guess it's Jake's fault.
Yeah.
Because he said to do it this way. So, but as soon as I'm able to collaborate in it, now I own part of it. And that contributes not just to the best solution, but it's the best buy-in from everybody. And you'll learn more rather than just, well, Jake said do it this way, so that's the way we're going to do it. And I can tick a box. I did it that way. I don't need to learn why or how. Well, maybe how, but I don't need to learn why would be the right way to do it. It's just, that is the way to do it.
Yeah. And if everyone is bought in because they contributed, they're going to give you their best work, right? For those leaders out there. Like, if you want your team to perform to the maximum level, if everyone's bought in and aligned with the goal of that project, they're all going to do their best work.
Yeah. And I've been in situations many times where that's not the case. And it's just do it this way. And maybe even a little more abrasive than it could have been delivered. But then that just like, well, one, it builds resentment, I think, because I certainly did when it was like, hey, what about this? What about this idea? And it was just shut down and nope, we're just going to do it this way. And not even given the chance to say why you offered that in the first place. It locks something up in my brain to where it's just like, I don't like that. And now I'm kind of getting like a little pissed off. And then the next time it's like, I'm not even going to offer because first, I don't want to get into pissed off mode again. So I'm just not going to say anything anyway. And then that's just continuing to shut down all of the communication. So it's a very bad place to be in. So if you're going to move in, if you're going to, like, even for those participating as an individual contributor or someone that's not like the lead, you can do the same thing just from the other side. And just kind of speak up and give your say and say, hey, look, I know you're like kind of shut me down in the meeting there, but if you could just allow me like a good 10, 15 seconds to explain myself a little more before you do that, it would work us towards more understanding, and I would feel better about the team dynamic. And then from the leadership side, you can also do that for people. So try not to be the person that just shuts them down. Sometimes not in my industry or the work that I did, would there ever be a time where it's absolutely necessary to be like, someone's going to die if I don't just shut you down right now and I move without explanation? Like, that's not the case. Sometimes that could be the case in certain industries and certain teams, but then just follow up and say, hey man, sorry, I had to shut that down. We just had to move. And like, as you can see, the result was that somebody didn't die. So that's great, but I had to do it. I don't want to like leave that out there as just, I crushed you and that was it,
And that's actually a critical step, because there will be moments if you're in the middle of commissioning something and startup is, the time is ticking, you may have to act now, but that follow-up will rebuild those damaged relationships of shutting that person down to say, hey, this is why. And I value your contributions. And you know what? Let's talk about how that could be implemented maybe next time. Just in that moment, things were literally on fire. We needed to move.
Like the steam was coming out of the valve and it shouldn't have been. Like, we needed to do something. Yeah. There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of nuance in that communication.
So how can our listeners be a little more tactical in building some self-awareness to find, to illuminate some of their blind spots, to be able to identify some of these areas that they can improve in?
Really good question. Probably not one I was wildly prepared for.
Yeah, sorry.
Actually, well, no, it's good though. I think where you can, if you have outside perspectives that you can draw from, that can be helpful. I know. So one particular tool I use in my coaching practice that I got exposed to about 15 years ago, is the Clifton Strengths, that helps. It's an assessment that helps you understand some of the reasons why you do the things you do. There's 34 different themes that will manifest themselves differently in each individual and can explain and help you understand why you may do some of those things. Working with a coach, again, as an outside perspective, can definitely help you get a better understanding of who you are, why you are, kind of what your motivations are, which can definitely help you either redirect or better direct your energies as you're approaching situations, right? So to hear and you have to be willing to listen. So to hear that, like, hey, every meeting you shut everyone down. Here's how we're taking that. Like, you're going to be the only one in the meeting talking because no one's willing to contribute. So getting that feedback and being willing to listen and make those improvements yourself are some definite keys.
Yeah. And you mentioned, was it Clifton? What was it again?
Clifton Strengths.
Okay.
It used to be Strengths Finders and then
Okay.
got rebranded when Gallup bought them.
Okay. Yeah. And I know there's some other ones like a predictive index, and there's there's a bunch of other ones, and I know a lot of
profiles and stuff.
Yeah, disc profile, that's the one I was trying to think of. But there's typically your company will have you take these surveys like during the hiring process. A lot of them do, and so you can even request some of those and kind of get your profile front like you've already taken it, right? And that could help eliminate.
That's
some
right.
Of those,
I think a lot of companies will use those to evaluate you and where you might fit. But I think it's equally important for you to be able to understand yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And what they are not 100% scientific or accurate. They're often repeatable, sometimes capturing a snapshot in time to a degree, but using them as a data point to help you understand, not as your go-to be all end all, but as a data point to help understand yourself better. They're definitely good tools to be able to leverage.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, actually. As someone that's part of a team, you could even request to help us better understand each other. Not that there's a problem now, but it'd be great to see this evaluation of who each of us is, like our snapshot, in time, and make sure that we're not placing 4 team members on the same project that are all naturally aggressive on schedule together at the same time.
Yeah.
Maybe we start formulating our teams to match our strengths, our natural tendencies is what they called it at my last employer, which I kind of liked, because it's like someone tells you, yeah, your weaknesses are this. It's like, but if your natural tendencies are not to do the following, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's not a weakness. It's just what I don't naturally trend towards. So that,
Yeah.
that kind of helped me out, understand it a little better. But yeah, like knowing that between your team is going to be great.
It's really good. And I think really some progressive companies will look to build teams that way. And going back to a sports analogy, like if you have a hockey team full of goalies, like you need to have a mix of different types of players to be successful as a team in anywhere. So whether it's aggressive on schedule or stopping every puck, you're not going to score any goals in that case. Well, it's not likely anyways. So
yeah.
So building your teams and balancing them can be a really great strategic move if you have the ability. If you have 4 people in your company, you might not be able to mix and match them that well, but
right.
Yeah. But I mean, you could also use it in your hiring process, right? If you have 3 engineers on your team that are all like incredibly data driven and very technical, but they don't have any soft skills, you need to hire in an engineer that has that potential to be a very great communicator, right, to help balance that out. The company I work for right now does do these kind of profiles for everyone that they bring in, and we have tools as managers to be able to place in people in the team, so we have a more well-rounded team for each one of the specific groups. So it's been a really awesome tool. So I highly recommend it for any leaders out there.
I challenge someone to like look around and see if their team has done one of these evaluations and bring it up and explore that rabbit hole and see what you guys find. I can't imagine these are super expensive, but do it. Go do it. I challenge you to do it. The self-awareness aspect is super key. And I don't know if I like is that the term, being self-aware? Is that still the thing people say?
I think so.
I guess.
Sounds good for now.
Know thyself.
Yeah.
Know thyself. I don't know. Latch on to whatever philosopher you want and use their version of knowing yourself. But it really is super important. We've touched on it so many times. But you can just be radically out there, like doing your own thing and thinking you're the hot shit, and it's just wrecking teams and relationships and stuff like that. You got to kind of know what's who you are, and where like your boundaries are. Like one of the big things I learned was like triggers, right? So this certain event happens, Jake turns into this, and then the result is this. And it's like, I don't like that. So where does it start? It starts with this trigger, and so identify the trigger and just objectively say, when something like this happens and I start behaving this way, I need to then replace that behavior with something different, right? And so a long time ago for me, it was, all right, when people start throwing stuff out at each other and just like huge debates and no one's really catching anything, they're all just volleying to one side and no one really is coming back and we're just going nowhere. I start to get really like pissed off. I'm just like, guys, everybody just shut up one at a time. What are we actually doing here? And I will get like, and then that just shuts down everything, right? So it's like, okay, that's the behavior. It's like, don't do that. And instead, what I chose to do, because I couldn't figure out what to do, I just chose to excuse myself from the conversation and just come back later. I'm like, all right, you guys, I have nothing to input right now. I'm going to go do this other thing. It's nothing personal. It's like, I just got to go do this thing and then we can all regroup. And that was a good behavior change for me to make, in that situation. So you guys got any examples on that?
Well, I was thinking that was a great example of identifying the things under your control
Yes.
and releasing those that you cannot control. So though you attempted to control the room to a degree, it got to the point where you could not. And the only thing you could control was yourself, your attitude, and your presence in the gong show. And so by removing yourself from that, now you can kind of center yourself and let it run its course and then come back to when it can be productive again.
Right. And I don't even know why it started. What inside of my body made me do that? Set my brain up to just be like, super like, gotta shut this down now or I'm going to explode. I don't know. Why does that even show up? It still shows up to this day. I just now have a different behavior based on the trigger to do instead of blowing up. So I find it tactical. And instead of trying to change the way that my body is made and how I respond to things, I could just do something different for just a little bit, and it'll change.
It sounds like a bit of an executive function: fight, flight, or freeze. And as you've grown and matured, you've decided to stop the fight because that was going to be counterproductive, right, and chose the flight, which was probably better for everyone.
The energy had to go somewhere. Yeah. It might as well not be the other people.
Emotional regulation under pressure.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure that I could regulate my emotions at that point.
you just removed. So yeah.
But some of that comes back to the self-awareness, right? So if you're not aware of what it is that's triggering you to explode, and that you're going to explode, and that said explosion may cause irreparable damages, just knowing those things and being able to act upon it. And part of that emotional regulation sounds like it was removing yourself from the situation. That was the best way. And sometimes that's your only option. We can't always just take a breath and carry on if things are escalating in the moment.
So something that popped in my head is, could someone, and it's kind of a question sort of statement, could someone identify, their common reaction that is counterproductive ahead of time and say, okay, when I'm triggered to this point, maybe I need to just take these actions that they define while they're in a calm mental state, and they just run through that script. Essentially, for Jake, it's, I got to leave, go for a walk or go do something else and then circle back, right? That's his script that he just deploys anytime that he gets to that trigger point. I mean, is that something that almost everyone really should just identify and kind of lay out that script?
I think it's a great step. It's not always applicable, but a direct example I have of one young fellow that I'm working with. He is in the midst of a construction project, but he needs a moment to think. He's young enough that he's not completely confident in everything he does. And he's working with contractors that are older and more experienced. And so identifying those things early and knowing and being transparent with the guys is what I encourage him to do, is to say, hey guys, okay, that sounds like a great approach. Let me take a moment to just step back and make sure that it meets all of the design criteria as well as the client's needs. And I'll get back to you. Give me 30 minutes to excuse myself, because he knows that he's anti-confrontational. And in that moment, if he's forced to make a decision, he's just going to comply. Okay, you're older, you're more experienced, I'll just go. And it may be the wrong choice. And then if he has to come back to that wrong choice afterwards, he's undermined his credibility, impacted schedule and budget and everything. So, but by being able to say, hang on, this is not a life and death thing. In this case, we're building a road. Why don't you guys go and have coffee right now? I'll double check with the design, and then we can reconvene and make sure that we're all on the same page and achieving the same goal. So identifying those things early, he's now built a better script for himself. to say, I need time to process. Let's enact it.
Yeah, and that's going to build trust and confidence in him from those more experienced, contractors and other professionals, right? So he's going to be able to build that trust, and with experience, he'll gain the confidence and be able to be more decisive later on, and then that trust will already be established.
Exactly.
Yeah, and when you just say, yep, totally, that's what we're gonna do, and it just falls apart, you're just eroding your reputation. And then the other people are assuming in the moment that you know exactly what they meant, and that you're like, yeah, I agree, we should do that, and they have no idea that you don't know a bunch of the things in between. And so, I mean, I guess specifically for that example, that's not going to work out so well when you're building stuff. Like, you should be kind of a little more upfront with that builder team, that is executing the work immediately, adjacent to the topic at hand. It's not like you're in a boardroom having discussions about strategy. It's like,
Right.
you're doing the thing. So very good to implement that. There are degrees at which these tactics we're talking about work, and that's a very good example for that particular situation.
Well, and the flip to that is just saying, nope, it's my way. And so that shuts down the conversation, and it shuts down your ability to learn. This is actually something I learned just before I graduated university. I was in a work term working with an electrician who hated engineers.
Nice.
And
Isn't that all
being
of them?
curious, I asked him why. And his answer that has stuck with me through almost 30 years so far was, you engineers sit in your ivory towers and you design something on paper that will never work in the real world. And then you give it to us and you won't listen, and we have to build it.
I've heard that so many times.
Yeah,
Me too.
And a really great example he'd given was he'd got a design for a skid that had a pump in it. And the way the design is the entire process had to be shut down to do any maintenance on the pump. If that pump had been rotated 90 degrees, you could access the pump while the system was online and do maintenance on it. But the engineer wouldn't listen because their drawing said to install it that way. And so I've really taken that to heart to be able to learn, right? To approach an electrical contractor to say, here's what my design is. You've done this every day of your life for 20 years. You may know some better ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can, let me know, because then I can improve my design for the future. And, and I'm open to listening.
I spent years in the field doing that same thing.
Yeah. And probably the biggest compliment I had got was one of those electrical contractors said, you're an engineer I'd actually go for a beer with. So
that's how you know you've made it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, like
I'm sure he wanted me to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Or pour it a certain way, or make sure the cup was a certain size or something. Yeah, that's a big deal though. What you just covered. So when I was in the field, it was always, well, like nowadays I go to introduce myself to a contractor, and they're like, "Oh yeah, so what do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm that guy on the other side of the drawings." And you're always just like, "Man, they would just do it this other way. It'd be so much easier." So I'm the guy you're cursing all the time, how are you? And it's always a nice like little icebreaker. But when I was in the field and just walking down buildings, doing my inspections like I'm supposed to do as an engineer, and it's just a trove of very useful insight and information that these frontline workers basically that are swinging the hammers, using the tools, planning the actual implementation of how do we construct this building and coordinate it with all these different trades and the steps that need to be taken before other certain steps. They've given me so much good stuff, like, and it even helps me pare my drawings down in the right areas. Well, I don't have to try and cover everything because I want to be the best, most detailed, right? So that they have the best chance to get a really good bid and schedule it right. And like, I'm trying to like help them through the drawings, because if you help your contractors and the owners as best you can through what you're actually contractually obligated to deliver, that's a good thing. Then I get to point my effort, right? It's like, oh, this guy was always saying that this certain installation detail for this conduit, surface conduit in a certain room, is just so much easier and faster, and this is why it's better to do it this way. It's better protected. You can get to it easier. All the same things, right? And so you can change up your details. You don't have to be the engineer that's like, well, we've always shown it this way, and we're just going to stick to it. And you're going to have to shut down your entire skid and pull it. Steve, what if we... Who was telling the car manufacturers this stuff when we were working on cars as kids, man? Like we had to take... We couldn't fit our hands in there, right? And then like it had the wrong angle, and you had to buy like this serpentine, like unimaginable twisting, rotating socket arm just to get to this one bolt, or you had to take the whole car apart. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Don't let the contractors be cursing you as they're trying to build the thing. Anyway.
Yeah. A lot of organizations that I've worked for, in product development, the first thing that we have the new hires do is go out on the factory floor. Learn how to build the stuff that you're designing, and you'll see the limitations of assembly or have them go interface with the actual end user customer, right? And see how the customer is using it. And, that's a great example of an automotive thing, right? How are the mechanics wrenching on these engines? Well, you should probably figure that out before you start designing engines. But I actually wanted to tie this back into our earlier discussion. This is a great opportunity for you to practice that communication of asking questions, because if you are intentionally curious and wanting to understand why things are the way they are and how you can be a better design engineer or whatever other type of engineer, how you're asking those questions is critically important, because you can come off as arrogant and you're like, well, why are you doing that? When really you should be like, hey, can you tell me why you do it this way? There's just totally different ways to approach the same question. So just kind of tying it back into our earlier conversation.
Well, and that's, and I was thinking about this one earlier. So if we are, as engineers, if we are tackling a design problem, we stay curious, we dig into those things. But as soon as people and communications are involved, oftentimes that curiosity and that digging into things gets dropped. Assumptions are made. So like, what if that same design mindset, systems thinking you applied to communicating with people, or even treating the entire process as a multi-staged system where communications is actually as important as the technical design. So that I can communicate, hey, Steve, here's where I'm at with my portion of the design. That communication update, and I know you guys actually have hit on this on a couple of the last podcasts of like just that proactive, like, well, now Steve can adjust his schedule because it looks like I'm going to be late on my deliverable. And it feeds into yours. Okay, now you can reprioritize. But if you don't know and you're sitting there waiting for me and you're going to probably start cursing me because you don't know if I'm done, if I'm completed, if I haven't started, if I'm dead somewhere in a ditch, right, all are equally likely because there's no communication back to you.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've run into that a lot. One thing I was going to tie back to ego and humility, though, as you guys were talking, and the example of the contractor building the skid or the contractor in the field building the building and us designers, where do you think the contractor is on the spectrum of ego or confidence, whatever, while they're building something in the field in real time? They are in execution mode. They are deploying. They're not back in the training, teaching somebody how to wire something up. That they're getting the job done. They're billable. It's you need to make progress. So they're highly confident. Then they're moving. And then what are you as you're out there kind of reviewing or saying, oh, how are things going, inspecting some work. You're not so much in the like go direct. You're kind of in the back going, oh, let's check this and check that. That's the perfect pairing of a confidence state, highly execution state, and someone that's in a, hey, let's learn some stuff state. And when you get two people together like that, it meshes really well because if you're going to ask a question of that contractor, hey, like, curious, can you tell me why you did this? Because I'd love to learn how I can do it better in design to support that, or just learn a thing or two. People that are in that execution mode and just ready to go would love to tell people how it is and
get
what they
amped up
should
about
be
it.
doing. They get amped up. They're ready to play the game. They're ready to throw that. They're ready to score the touchdown. They're ready to dominate. And so they would love to show you exactly how you should do it, right? So then you can ask all these questions, and then they'll start. I mean, I'm just telling you, it'll start that feed of just information you can take away. So I know I hit on that before. But
it breaks down those barriers, and you move from that effing engineer, which I've been called a lot in my life, to something like, yeah, if you say, hey, it looks like it's taking you a long time to wire that. Like, is there a better way? Because, oh yeah, we put those terminal blocks in a terrible place. I now see as you're trying to build it and contort your body, so that as long as you're approaching with humility, not why are you doing it that way, but looking to understand, like why are you doing it that way?
Yeah. Why is it taking you so long to do that? I think it's probably my fault. Something like that, like break the ice. Like, it looks like my design is really hard to install. Are you saying it's taken me a long time? No. Be careful. You might get yourself in a little toss-up.
I'm saying it's taking you a long time to implement my design.
Yeah. You wanna take us away to our questions?
Yeah. Well, before that, we want to spend a little time. Can you let our listeners know where they could find you, where they can reach out, kind of like the higher level things that you're doing?
Everything that I do and offer, even when it changes, is on my website. It's, which I think you'll have in the show notes, chrisstasiuk.com. Weird to spell, maybe. And I try to stay relatively active on LinkedIn. So, I offer one-on-one coaching, some group workshops, and various things that are on my website. I try to post some useful information, whether it's on LinkedIn, my website, or both. So that's where I'm most active. I don't really know how to use other platforms.
No,
I debated on this that could be cut. I'm planning to launch a podcast as well.
Yes.
That's awesome. Heck yeah.
So as soon as I actually sent that to my newsletter list. So I'm mostly committed now to say I was going to do it, but it's not a ton of people. And two of them are my mom and my mother-in-law. So
it's like us.
They're not going to be critical.
That's how we started.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I want a 100 episode commitment. If you're going to do it, you got to get to 100 episodes.
I can't say I'll try because do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah, I was going to say, as Yoda would say.
Yep.
We're nerds when.
Yeah. Right.
And do you primarily do individual type or like private coaching, or do you also do organizational, like where a company can call you up and have you come in?
I definitely would work with a company. In fact, I would love to be able to work with a company in that it would provide some additional consistency. Whether you were doing an assessment such that, like, hey, let's take your team and make sure everyone knows how everyone operates. But I do work one-on-one as well, where there are those that just they want to advance in their careers, and they're maybe not finding it in-house, or they've got something that they're a bit more aspirational and they don't want to tell their boss yet.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get those skills so that they can demonstrate before they have the title why they deserve it. So it is a combination. I work with companies. That very first client example that needed more tools in his toolbox was with an organization. Yeah. It hasn't grown past that individual yet, but so I do both.
Awesome. Perfect. And we'll have your website down in the show notes, so people don't have to wonder about the spelling. So we do ask a couple questions at the end of our guest episodes, and we actually already hit over an hour, so we're doing pretty good on time. Dang. So I'll just kick off with mine. Mine's a more higher level question, and it's blatantly just what does it mean to you to be an impactful engineer?
I love this question. And I think bringing your whole self and realizing your potential beyond your equations and technical expertise by being able to build relationships and communicate and bringing those things to bear. I think too many engineers are held back from leadership positions because they're too overly focused on the technical and not on those other components that would, fill in some of those gaps, round them out into whole, more complete engineers rather than just technical engineers. That said, we definitely need the super smart technical engineers. So, but still those communication skills, you're not going to be working in isolation. So
Yeah.
learning those and rounding those out helps you to teach younger engineers when you are the SME, and it helps you convey your ideas to those that need to fund them.
Yeah. I love that. And it's a really important for those listening that there's a difference between leadership and management, right? You want to be a leader no matter if you stay as a subject matter expert or if you go into management. Your obligation is to lead the next generation of engineers, right? And to build those skills will allow you to be able to fulfill that obligation.
And those skills, to tie back into the intro, helps you make a bigger impact in your community.
Yeah.
They're not just for work. They translate elsewhere when you can communicate and build relationships and lead with purpose.
Yeah.
You beat me to what I was going to say, because our mission so well. Like, wouldn't it be a shame? I was going to frame it that way. Wouldn't it be a shame for your highly technical ability and skill to not reach as many projects, as many up and coming engineers, as many leaders, as many very important products or structures in the physical world that help millions of people? Wouldn't it be a shame if not bringing your whole self limited the ability for that to be known and expand and be useful to the world, and your fellow humans? So that's what I was going to say, and you beat me to it. Yeah, I think everybody knows my question. What do we do immediately to improve and be able to bring our whole selves as engineers?
I think let down that ego and approach conversations and communications with curiosity. Look to learn, and in the process, you start to build relationships, which are key.
Know when to do it too, especially
Yes.
if you're always in the ego band. Maybe just bring it down a little bit.
That's right.
Alrighty, Steve, you gonna take us away?
Sure. Well, Chris,
tell people to give us reviews. That's your job.
Yeah, it is my job. Chris, this was an awesome conversation. I know there's a ton of value that people will grab from this. And I encourage anyone who's listening, if you don't already have a coach, reach out to Chris, go to his website, check out what he has to offer. So again, thank you for being on the show. So if you learned something today or think someone else needs to hear this or hear any of the points of view talked about today, please share the show. Leave us a review. 5 stars are great. 4 stars are okay, but 5 stars are better.
And 3 and below don't exist.
Yeah, exactly. And even better than that is to leave a worded comment review. That helps others understand the value that you gain from listening to the episode. So thank you for listening. Thanks, Chris, for joining us here.
Thanks for having me, guys.